Hello again, wrestling fans. My name is Lanny Poffo. Welcome to another exciting edition of Poetry in Motion on Who's Slamming Who. But before we get started, there's a man that wants to talk to you. My friend, my webmaster, the big man from Prince Edward Island, Canada, Mr. Jeff Doherty. Take it away.
Thanks, Lanny. I'm coming to you today from beautiful Knox's Dam, just outside of Montague, Prince Edward Island. And our topic today on the debut video edition of Poetry in Motion, or Who's Slamming Who, is one that's very important to all of us, fathers. Now, as many of you know, Lanny lost his father in early March. And although Angelo lived into his 80s, it certainly doesn't make it any easier to have to say goodbye to a loved one, especially a parent. I too know the pain of losing a father, as this coming May 13th will mark the 5-year anniversary of my father's passing. Now, the reason I've chosen this beautiful location today is because this is where my father used to take me as a child. We'd come here and go fishing, throw rocks in the water, collect leaves, and just sit around and listen to the wonderful sounds of the waterfall and the rushing water. Now, it's these special memories that get me through some of the toughest days since losing my dad. And there have been many over the past 5 years. But as each year goes by, it does get easier, and it does make me feel good to come to special places like this that I shared so many memories of with my father. Now, speaking of special memories, I'm going to send it back to you, Lanny, with a special memory of your own. If you'd share with us your poem about your father. Take it away, Lanny.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. It was back in 1945 on Independence Day that Nazis had surrendered. Japan was on its way. My dad was in the Navy. As history will tell, as he was bleeding through the mats, a world record fell. He did 6,000 sit-ups with an extra 33 to glorify our Savior who died for you and me. And Robert Ripley's feature celebrated this event. Giving credence to success is not an accident. That's always been his motto through times both good and bad. He's a real Hall of Famer and the world's greatest dad.
Thank you for sharing that beautiful poem with us, Lanny. A very fitting and moving tribute to your father, the one and only Angelo Poffo. I hope that someday soon you might write a poem in tribute to my dad, so that I can share with the world just what a wonderful father my dad, Glenn Doherty, truly was. Now, I'd like to speak to you for a moment on a topic that's very important, but all too often overlooked. That's the importance of saying I love you to those that are special and near to you. All too often I've had friends who have lost a loved one come to me and say, I wish I'd had one more chance to say I love you before they passed away. Now, unfortunately, if you don't, that's a regret you're going to have for the rest of your life, and you can't ever change it. So please, always say I love you to your loved ones, every chance you get. I'm very fortunate in the fact that 5 years ago when my father passed, the very last words my father heard me say to him were, I love you, Dad. And the last words I heard from my dad just days before he passed were, I love you, dear. That's something that my family has always put strong emphasis on from the time that I can remember. We always say I love you. We always give a hug and a kiss goodbye. That never changes, and that's something that I don't have a regret for the rest of my life, and I hope you won't have to either. Whether it's my mom, my sister and her husband, and right down to my nephews, I always say I love you before I leave, because you never know, you may not ever have a chance to say it again. So please take that chance, do it every time you can, and don't carry that regret for the rest of your lives. Now we're going to send it back out to Lanny, who's at the beach.
There's an old saying, there are no atheists in foxholes. But when you're out in the middle of the South Pacific, and there's kamikazes everywhere, it's 1945 and you're only 20 years old. There are also no atheists on board ship. Well, he did 6,000 sit-ups, and he followed it up with an extra 33 in gratitude for the life of Jesus, one for every year of the life of his Savior. And I believe that says it all.
It sure does say it all, Lanny. And speaking of saying it all, that's going to bring to a close our debut video edition of Poetry in Motion. Be sure to join us next week right here on Who's Slamming Who for another exciting episode. For your host, genius Lanny Poffo, I'm Jeff Doherty. See you next week.